Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight in to demystify the math behind what is, honestly, probably machine learning's most understandable algorithm. I mean, we hear so much about AI being this impenetrable black box these days, right? Well, decision trees are the exact opposite. They're a totally transparent, highly interpretable white box. So get ready, because we're going to open it up and see exactly how it ticks.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, the Guess Who algorithm, the intuition behind trees.
Now, I want you to think about something for a second. How do you win a game of Guess Who in the fewest possible moves? You know the game, right? You've got that board full of flip-down faces, and you need to figure out your opponent's mystery character. Well, believe it or not, every single time you play that childhood classic, you are intuitively running a machine learning decision tree algorithm right in your head.
Let's look at a tiny data set of characters: Brian, John, Afra, and Oifa. The whole goal of the game is to identify a randomly drawn card using only yes or no questions. And your strategy to win in the absolute fewest moves, well, that relies entirely on which question you decide to ask first.
Think about it. If you ask, does the person wear glasses, you might get lucky, sure. But on average, across multiple games, you're going to need about 2.25 questions to guess the right person. But notice how the logic branches out. If you ask, is it a man, right out of the gate, you perfectly slice the data right down the middle. By splitting your dataset this way, you average exactly 2 questions per game. You've completely optimized your questioning path.
Which brings us to Section 2, Anatomy of a Tree, Nodes and Branches. So we're going to translate that board game logic into formal machine learning terms. At the very top, we have the root node. This is literally your starting point. It represents the entirety of your training dataset before any questions are asked or any divisions are made. Every single piece of data lives right here initially.
Then, as we travel down the branches, we hit split nodes. These are your internal decision points. In a machine learning context, this is exactly where the algorithm tests a specific feature threshold. It's like asking a binary true or false question, like, say, is the petal length less than 2.45 centimeters?
And finally, we reach the bottom. This is the leaf, or terminal node. It's the final endpoint. Basically, it's where the model officially runs out of questions to ask and assigns the final predicted class. Or if we're dealing with regression, it assigns an average numerical value.
And this brilliantly illustrates all these anatomical parts working together seamlessly. Just think of predicting an iris flower species based purely on its petal length and width. You can literally trace the logic with your own eyes from the root node at the very top, down through the split nodes, right down to the leaf nodes, where that final species prediction is made. It's a completely transparent white box process.
Moving on to Section 3, how the tree learns, the CART algorithm.
So how does a computer actually choose which question to ask first? That is the job of the CART algorithm, which stands for Classification and Regression Trees. CART uses what's known as a top-down, greedy approach. At each step, it searches across all features to find the specific one and the specific threshold that produces the absolute purest, most distinct boxes or subsets of data. And we call it greedy because it looks for the absolute best split at that exact moment, without worrying at all about future steps.
Now, to figure out what actually makes a subset pure, the algorithm uses a loss function. The two heavy hitters here are Gini Impurity and Entropy. Gini Impurity is kind of the fast default metric that tries to perfectly isolate a single class into a node. Entropy, on the other hand, actually comes from thermodynamics. It measures disorder, and using it can sometimes give you slightly more balanced trees. But ultimately, both of them guide the tree to ask the most informative questions possible.
Once that tree is actually built, making a prediction is lightning fast. You traverse the tree in O of log 2 of m time. To put that into perspective, that is incredibly efficient, even if you have massive data sets. But, and this is a big but, the training complexity is much, much slower. Because to build the tree in the first place, the algorithm has to relentlessly compare all features across all samples at each and every split node.
Next up, Section 4, Taming the Overfit, Regularize and Prune.
Now, we absolutely have to talk about the fatal flaw of decision trees, the very real danger of overfitting. See, because decision trees are non-parametric, meaning they make almost no assumptions about the underlying data, they are incredibly adaptive. But if you let them grow without any restrictions, they will literally keep splitting until they create bizarre, highly fragmented rules just to perfectly fit every single random outlier in your training data. Basically, they start memorizing the noise instead of the actual signal.
Now, What's really interesting is how striking the visual difference is and how easily we can fix the problem. On one hand, an unrestricted tree will twist itself into absolute knots to capture every single data point. But by setting a really simple hyperparameter, like requiring a minimum of 5 samples per leaf, we completely smooth out those jagged boundaries. This regularized model is going to perform significantly better on new, unseen data in the real world.
Another fantastic way to tame a wild tree is through a technique called pruning. It's exactly what it sounds like, and it breaks down into 4 easy steps. First, you build a massive, totally unrestricted regression tree. Second, you obtain a sequence of subtrees by varying an alpha penalty on the terminal nodes. Essentially, you're mathematically penalizing the tree for being overly complex. Third, you run cross-validation to estimate the error. And finally, step 4, you just choose the alpha that gives you the lowest average error. And boom, you're left with a perfectly trimmed tree.
All right, let's wrap this up in Section 5, Strengths and Limitations.
Let's lay out the pros and cons clearly. The pros? Absolutely phenomenal. Decision trees give us highly interpretable white box predictions that actual humans can read and understand, and they offer incredibly fast inference speeds. But we can't ignore the cons. They have extremely high variance. That means even tiny little changes in your training data can completely change the resulting tree. And as we just saw, they have a severe susceptibility to overfitting if you don't carefully regulate them.
And this brings us to one of their most surprising weaknesses. They are incredibly sensitive to rotation. Imagine a dataset where a single, simple split perfectly separates 2 classes. If we literally just rotate that exact same data by 45 degrees, the poor tree is suddenly forced to create these complex, jagged, stair-step boundaries just to draw what should be a simple, straight, diagonal line. It's the exact same data, but the algorithm struggles to adapt.
So, I want to leave you with this thought to chew on. We've seen how brilliant but also highly variant and occasionally super fragile a single decision tree can be. It memorizes noise, it absolutely hates rotation, and it loves to overfit. So, if a single tree is this fragile, what happens when you combine hundreds of them and plant an entire forest? That is the magic of ensemble learning, and it's exactly where this fascinating field goes next. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.